This conference will now be recorded.
Be held in Sydney. The live part's to be held in Sydney. And my name's Sandra Turner, and I'm one of the course directors and teachers for the course. So welcome, everybody. We're very excited to be launching this Down Under version of the course. Firstly, I'd just like to introduce Sarah Dowd, who's the person that you've been liaising with. She's our coordinator organiser in the college, and has done a fantastic job. Did you want to make a couple of announcements, Sarah?
Yeah, so just to let everybody know, this conference will be recorded, and if you could all please mute yourself, it would just, get rid of any background noise. And then obviously if you want to ask a question, you can talk, or there's a little chat function at the bottom of your GoToMeeting screen.
Yeah, so we'll be trying to keep track of the chat. If people are talking, and sometimes when you're talking, it's easy to miss the chat. So if it seems to be that a question isn't being answered, please feel free to anybody just jump in and say there's a question there. And we're really happy to take those at any time. So we're going to we'll just kick off onto the next screen, Sarah, please. Actually, I'm hoping most of the faculty are here, because I wanted people to say hello themselves. So the first thing to say is we're really sorry, but Alessandro Cortese, who's the Estro representative from Europe, he's in Belgium, and he used to teach, or does still teach, the the managing change section. He wasn't able to join us and sends his apologies, but some of the work he's done will be actually taught at the course. But everybody else that you see on the screen will be your teaching faculty. And the people that are present, I might just get to quickly say who they are and where they're from. Barbara Ann, maybe starting with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Barbara Ann Miller. I'm based in Princess Margaret Cancer Centre in Toronto, and I'm a radiation oncologist, and this will be the 4th course we've run together, so we're really looking forward to it.
And Sean, I can see you there.
G'day everyone, I'm Sean Gagan. I'm a medical physicist based at the Royal Adelaide Hospital in Australia, and this will be my first time participating in this course on faculty, so I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome. Gina, are you there?
Yes, hi Sandra, hi everyone. My name is Gina Hesselberg. I'm a radiation oncologist based at St George Hospital in Sydney, and this is the first time for me doing this course as well, and I've been working as a convener for the course with Sandra and Sarah to get it up and running, so looking forward to it as well.
And thank you, Gina, for your work. Really appreciate that. Lucinda, are you there yet?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. Am I doing a quick introduction?
Yes.
Hello everyone, I'm Lucinda Morris. I'm dialing in from London, from Manchester at the moment, so it's a bit late at night for me, so if you excuse my husky voice. I've been on the faculty on the course since its inception, and I help run the quality improvement and the communication and vision components of the course, and I'm delighted that we're delivering it on home turf today.
Thanks. So, Meredith, are you there yet?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi. My name's Meredith. I work at Auckland Radiation Oncology in Auckland, and I think my title is professional leader. So I'm just looking forward to getting some skills to help working with the team. It's sounding like a really good course. So hi.
Hi, Meredith. Sorry for my lack of clarity. I was actually wondering whether Meredith, our teacher, our faculty.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
No, not at all. Sorry, I was just listening for the Canadian accent. We will get a chance to all meet each other in a lot more detail and go through every participant when we have our live session, but we decided to leave that for when we were face to face. So look, Meredith, I'm sure she will join us. She works with Barbara Ann in Toronto at Princess Margaret Hospital, and is a keen educator and the chair of the Caro Education Committee, amongst many other hats that she holds. Matthew, are you online?
Yes, I'm having a little trouble with the computer, but I've phoned in, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Steele. I'm a radiation oncologist in New Zealand. This will be my first time helping with the course as well, although I've helped Sandra with some of the background in the past.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so next slide, please, Sarah. So this is who you all are, and I'm not going to go through the details, but I think you all get to know each other well. A couple of things just to highlight. We will have I think we've got 44 participants, which is absolutely amazing. It's a little bit over our planned numbers, but your applications were so good, we couldn't refuse them. You'll see there's an excellent mixture of radiation therapists, physicists. Unfortunately, there's another physics course around leadership in a different kind of sort of administrative leadership. So that took a few people away, but we're delighted that we've got several medical physicists. And all the other people not highlighted there are radiation oncologists, or we're really excited to have a PhD student on a radiation oncology subject from Belgium, and also a radiation oncology nurse for the first time from New Zealand, which is really great to have the other important group of our teams represented. And I just particularly wanted to also welcome our two radiation oncologists from the United States. We're actually thrilled that we've got some outside participants as well, so welcome. Next slide, please, Sarah. So these are the formal learning objectives of the course. And I won't go through each of these. You've probably read these when you were deciding whether to apply for the course. But really just to say that we're not expecting people to jump out of this course fully qualified to lead any and every project. And we'll talk a lot more about what this means and leadership at all levels as we go through. But we do hope that you will come away just having a bit more of an idea of how we can break down leadership skills into some simple steps and skills that allow us to step up in leadership roles. And I have absolute no doubt, reading your applications and your motivation, that you all are already exhibiting leadership, and this is just the start really of a very long and continuing journey about how to improve in leadership, which we're still all on. So I don't want you to get the idea that any of us believe that we're, fully fledged leaders. Tick, we've done that. It's like all learning, it's a continuous process of evolution and development, and we're really excited that you're going to share that with us. Next slide, please. I guess those are the formal learning objectives, but what it comes down to and what the faculty's motivation for getting involved with and initiating this program was that we want to enhance your ability to be able to become and step up into leadership roles within radiation oncology, or into leadership, whether you're in a role or named position or not, and we're all capable of that. And I think all of you would be here because you believe that it is our responsibility as radiation oncology professionals to act in more than a clinical role looking after our patients. So I guess that's the why ultimately. And the second why is we all really are here to improve the care of our patients, and there's a whole host of different ways that we might achieve that through taking responsibility for leadership. So next slide, please. So just an outline of what we're going to go through today, and hopefully it won't take the full hour and a half, hopefully about an hour and a quarter, and it's really just trying to orientate you to this course, give you a little bit of work to be getting on with, so that when you come to the live sessions, you'll have a much stronger foundation that will allow us to build on that when we're all together. So Barbara Ann will go through a little bit, as you can see, what is leadership, what do we mean by it, why does it matter, and then an exercise we'll do around understanding our own behaviours and preferences for dealing with other people. Lucinda will introduce some quality improvement tools and a task that you will do as homework. Meredith will deal with some introductory tips on dealing with conflict and how we're going to build on that within the course and our homework. And then we'll do a description of the homework and some troubleshooting and contacts for you if you have any issues with the homework in the next few weeks until we meet. Next slide, please. So principles, I've said that we're all learning every time. This is the fourth time, as Barbara Ann said, that we've run this course, twice in Europe and once in Canada. And as we go through, we're learning more and more about what will hopefully suit you, what does and doesn't work. So this is not fixed. We really, really value your feedback, and we're all here to learn from each other, you from us and from other participants. We always learn a lot as we go along from you guys. So it is designed as being very, very inclusive. We want people to share. We want people to interact. It's much harder when we're giving a tutorial like this, but please ask questions and get involved. That's how this course runs and works. It's very multidisciplinary. As you see, we work on the basis that we all need each other within our hospital teams, and very much that's also how the course runs. You'll notice that Sean is our first physicist coming onto the teaching faculty. We also have Michelle Leach, who wasn't able to join us, who's a radiation therapist from Ireland. And more we want the teachers and the group to be multidisciplinary to represent what happens in our workplace. Please ask questions either now or during the homework period or during the course. And look, most of all, have fun because we will have a lot of fun with this. Okay, next slide, please. I'll pass over to Barbara Ann to take it from here.
Okay, thanks very much, Sandra. So really, we wanted to just give you a little flavour of what we'll be doing over the course. So what is leadership? Can I have the next slide? So one of the things about the leadership component is we really want you to be able to recognise all the roles and different jobs that you do in your day-to-day working life that are actually leadership roles, and we'll talk about the different way in which that you can change the environments in which you work in to take those leadership roles on and move forward your departments, to identify what are the really useful skills and values to have in those roles, and to kind of initiate a discussion on what skills you need as an individual to develop to be really effective in a leadership position. Next slide, please. So am I a leader? And I think lots of us throughout our time have been kind of challenged by, I'm not really a leader, because you may not have a job that has the big title or the big room with the sign on the door, but that's not what really leadership is. And when I think about leadership, I think about the big L leadership, which are the directors, heads of divisions, heads of hospitals. But really, what's very important is also the small L leadership roles that some of us may do and may have and may not actually have the title, but are in fact doing very important work, leading our smaller groups, leading our clinical teams, leading our education groups, whatever that is. And so these small leadership roles then move on and develop into larger skill and larger roles within your departments. And there's many different areas where we can have those. Next slide, please. So you can think about where you might be involved in leadership in lots of different ways. As I've mentioned, it can be in your clinical team, it may be on the inpatient unit, on the units, radiation treatment units in the department. It can be within your hospital, both as in different sets of committees or at your university. And, you know, it can be locally in your hospital, it can be in your cities, it can be in your countries or your provinces, it can be internationally. So these are all things that you have an opportunity to take on leadership roles, and we hope that this will give you really great skills to enable you to be really effective. Next slide, please. So if I was to ask any of you, if you could think of one person who was a really great leader, and what were the things that made them really good at what they did, I think you would probably come up with a list that includes certain of these qualities. So the ability to listen is really important, the vision, your ability to communicate, your ability to adapt and be flexible, the support that you would give, compassion, respect and fairness, professionalism. All of these things are very, very important for someone to be an effective leader. Next slide, please. So these are lots and lots of skills to get to these people that we look up to as being very effective as a leader. And we hope that some of these skills that we will help share with you will be things that you'll take away from the course to enable you to be successful. One of the things that we will do is an aspect of self-reflection, which will enable you to think a little bit more about how you interact and what your preferences are, and also give you an opportunity to reflect about how other people choose to interact with you and how that you may be more effective. And that's part of the insights profiles and the session on that on the first day. Another really important thing is how to actively listen to what other people are saying and to learn that skill. And in combination with the QI project, we actually do a specific exercise that will help you hone your active listening skills. And one of the other things we think is really important is when you are a leader, it's important to be genuine in what you do and find where your personal values lie to align your leadership along with that. So many of you might have read some leadership work talking about authentic leadership, but really knowing that you're doing something because you value it and you feel that that's really worthwhile is a very important thing to both sustain yourself and sustain your work when you do leadership roles. Next slide, please. So Sandra and I will be teaching on the first day on a session called Interpersonal Effectiveness. This is a session which is based on a personality profile, so similar to Myers-Briggs or something like that, but it's developed by a company called Insights, which are actually Scottish, a bit like me, but I have nothing to disclose on a financial basis. But what we do need you to do is well before the start of the meeting, we actually need you to complete it's a 25-question online evaluator. So it will ask you to fill it in. You'll get it as an email. We'll get you to fill it in. And from that, we will develop an individual profile for you. And we will share that with you during the session. Now, nobody else will see your profile. Sandra and I only get to see the profile from the perspective of colour preferences are generated within that, but nobody else will see it as your own personal information. But we find that is a very useful tool for people, both in the engagement in the session, but again, much longer afterwards, to help you know a little bit more about yourself, how you interact, what your preferences are, and how you would share that, and how you would think about interacting with others. So we think this is a really useful thing for you to have, and so we would like you to, when you get that email, to complete that evaluator. It doesn't take more than 10 minutes, but we'd like you to have it done by the 5th of August so we can have all of those profiles ready for you for the course. And I think that's my last slide. Oh, no, here we go. Last slide. So what we want you to get from leadership for this course is awareness of your own style and your values and how you interact with others and what your preferences are and what you perhaps steer away from doing. Skills to enable you to take situations with change and improvement into your settings, strategies to make your teams work well, active listening opportunities, and how to collaborate and network. So I think that's the end for my slide. So I think I'm going to hand back to Sandra.
Thanks, Barbara Ann. So we'll go through how you get access to all of these resources, but as Barbara Ann said, the Insights profile you'll be sent a link to that, and you just click on, and it's very straightforward. And if you're having any problems or you forget to do it, we will hassle you. It's really important that you do it, and it's great fun. But you won't be able to take part in the live sessions if you don't have your own profile. So it is important you do that. Okay, Lucinda, do you want to take over from here, please?
Hi, thanks, Sandra. So today I'm going to be talking about introducing tools for quality improvement. And I guess the first important thing to sort of ask or to say is why do we have a section or a learning outcome based around quality improvement in the leadership course? And I think it's important to step back and realise that leadership innately implies change. But when we're actually in our workplace, what do we mean by changes, and how do we know what changes we want to implement to improve things, and how do we know that those changes have worked and made things better for our patients? And that's when quality improvement comes into the picture. It essentially provides a framework and a set of tools that allows us to measure and improve the median of the quality of care that our patients receive, and ultimately reduce variability. And that means that our patients will end up getting timely, high quality, appropriate care. So quality improvement is an incredibly helpful science and way of approaching change within our workplace. So next slide, please. So when we approach sort of any change process or quality improvement process, there's three key questions that we need to ask that sort of sit under the model for improvement. So the first question is, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to fix or change? And how will we know if we implement a change that it's actually equaled an improvement? And what changes can we make that will result in an improvement? And we take the answers to those three questions and feed them into what's called a Pdsa cycle, or a plan, do, study, act cycle, which I'll talk about more a few more slides in. But essentially Pdsa is an iterative, repeated process that helps us refine any particular change that we're trying to implement. Next slide, please. So what you can see here is sort of an overarching summary of the quality improvement process itself and the various tools that you can use at the various steps along this process. And if you go online and Google quality improvement tools, there's many tools out there, and it can all get very confusing. But what we've tried to do here is select a few key tools that are particularly helpful when first starting out with any quality improvement process. And just moving from left to right here, the first step of any QI process is to firstly just ask, well, what's important to us here, you know, in our workplace? What's important to our staff and our colleagues, and in particularly our patients? And is it the best it could be? And if you're looking to really explore whether something is, you know, the best it could be, or whether it needs to be improved, there's various sources of data that you can go to, whether it be audits or surveys or patient and staff interviews. But essentially you sort of delve into the data and diagnose what the particular problem is. And two tools that can be very helpful in doing this are root cause and causal factor analysis. And also, as part of this, you need to understand the system that you're working in and what processes are in place. And an important step of defining that and seeing how things are working currently and how they can be improved is through process mapping. And then you need to come up with, well, what changes could we make? What could we implement that will actually fix this problem? And that's when driver diagrams can be very helpful. And then you need to test these changes in what I've just talked about, which is the Pdsa cycle, an iterative ongoing process. And then ultimately you need to really judge whether your change has equaled improvement. And one particular tool that's very helpful for doing that are run and control charts, which we'll talk about in a minute. Next slide, please. So the first key step of any quality improvement project is to identify your team and your stakeholders. And when you're putting your team together, I think it's really important to make sure your team is very diverse. You don't want a group of samers. You want a really diverse group of people who have different skill sets and different experiences and perspectives within your workplace. And the way that you can do that is to really ask yourself, well, who knows about this problem or has the most info about it? Who cares and wants to fix it? And who has the power to come up with a solution that can address this problem? I think it's also important when you're thinking about the stakeholders that are invested in what you're trying to improve is to really brainstorm across your departments, not just doctors and nurses and radiation therapists and physicists, but even thinking right down to data managers, admin staff, cleaners, consumers, volunteers. It really is important to brainstorm everybody that can be impacted by any particular QI process and keep everyone informed of every step of the process as you go through it, so everyone's constantly updated on what's happening as part of your project. Next slide, please. So you have your team, you've put them together and they're fabulous, and you vaguely know that there's a problem in your department, but that's not really good enough. It's very important at the outset of any QI process is to really, really carefully drill down to what the problem is and what your aim is in addressing that problem. So the example that's identified here is, for example, is to improve the time of arrival of patients requiring urgent treatment for spinal cord compression in a rad onc department to treatment. And the aim to address this particular clinical problem is to reduce waiting times for radiotherapy to 4 hours for 100% of patients by April 2019. And you can see in that aim, it's what's called a SMART aim. So it identifies a system to be improved, the particular patient population, specific numerical goals, and the time frame in which those goals need to be achieved. So the what, by how much, and by when. And that's what's called a SMART aim. Pardon me, next slide. So what you can see here is what's called a fishbone analysis, and it's very helpful in diagnosing what the current problem is. And the way that you do a fishbone analysis is applying the 5 questions of what, why, when, where and how, and you ask all those questions and feed them into this fishbone diagram, and ultimately that helps you identify the root cause of a particular problem, so that when you come up with the solution to it, you're actually identifying what's causing a problem here. Next slide, please. Another really important step in any quality improvement process is to understand the system that you're working in, and really that involves getting all your stakeholders together and everybody, your project team together, and mapping the current system and the process that you're looking to improve, and looking at how it looks now, but also carefully mapping out what you want it to look like after your quality improvement process is complete. And it's really important to use data where possible to provide the before picture and then the after measurement of that improvement. Next slide, please. So what we have here is a driver diagram, and this is a really helpful way of identifying possible solutions or change ideas for your quality improvement project. So the first thing is to identify primary drivers of a problem, and then the next step is to drill down further and try and identify secondary drivers. So I'm asking again, but why, but why, but why? And then ultimately those second drivers help you brainstorm a variety of change ideas. And then you have this big, list of change ideas, and it's up to you and your team to go through up those ideas and identify which ones you think may possibly help address this problem. Next slide, please. So now you've identified your problem and you've come up with a possible way of fixing that problem. The next step is to feed this all into what's called the Pdsa cycle, the plan, do, study, act cycle. So in step one of this is the plan. So you need to plan who's going to implement the change, who's going to collect the data and when. Step two is to do. So you take the dive and you put the change into practice. Step three is to study the change. So collect and analyze your data, especially in terms of your aims and what was learned from this data. And then it's time to act on those findings. So what changes do you want to abandon, or what do you want to adapt, or what do you want to adopt? Next slide, please. And what this slide really demonstrates is that the Pdsa cycle is not to be done once, but it's to be done repeatedly as you work towards your aim and refine the change process towards your aim. So it really is an iterative process. And I think it's also important to start out small and not try and implement too much change in your first Pdsa cycle, but make small tweaks as you go, because that will help prevent the scope of your project really blowing out. Next slide, please. So ultimately, how do you know the change that you've implemented has equaled an improvement? And as we've said, that's why it's important at the outset of your project to use the SMART criteria in identifying your aim. And next slide, please. One way of mapping whether what you've implemented as equal change is through what's called a run chart. And a run chart is essentially just a consecutive time-ordered data that measures an outcome before and after a change is implemented and really allows you to test your intervention. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the before and after of the project that we had earlier about reducing wait times for urgent spinal cord compression treatment. And the blue is the dark blue bar represents the data post change. And you can see that everything got better except the preparation to treatment time. And so in that instance, that would mean that you go back to the Pdsa cycle and focus on that preparation time. And try and fix that in your next iteration of the Pdsa cycle. Next slide, please. So as part of the face-to-face program in Sydney, you have a bit of homework. And the first thing I want to say about this is please don't freak out. Please don't prepare a formal presentation. Please don't be nervous about this. This is really just a brainstorming exercise to have a go at hypothetically planning a quality improvement project. And what this will entail is a 5-minute presentation around a hypothetical QI project that you would propose to undertake within your workplace. So as it says here, rule number 1, don't panic. Next slide, please. So this is a template that you, Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is available for you to download, and you can just use this as a tool basically to fill in for the face-to-face session, and it outlines just the 4 simple steps that you need to brainstorm for the processes of your QI project. So if we go to the next slide, this will make it clearer. So step 1 of the homework is to describe a problem or issue in your workplace that you think could be improved. And one really easy way of doing this is just think, well, what bugs me in my workplace and what would I like to fix? And it doesn't need to be a big problem. We don't want you to come in with the cure for cancer. It may be something as simple as a workflow process, or something to do with paperwork, or the location of resources within your department. And think carefully about, well, if I fix this problem, what will the benefits be in particular to patients, and can I measure the benefits of this problem? Step 2 is on the next slide, thank you. So once you've identified the problem, the next thing is to come up with the aim of your project, and it's very important that the aim is SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And one example of that is what we talked about in the earlier slides, to make sure that the goals of your QI project are very clearly defined at the beginning. Next slide, please. So once you've identified your aim of your project, the next step is to identify the stakeholders and brainstorm a list of people that know about the situation, that have information about it, who care about it, and who can do something about it. And in any radiation oncology department, there's so many stakeholder groups that can impact a QI project. So it's important to really brainstorm those various groups. Next slide, please. And lastly, have a think about which quality improvement tools you'd like to use in your hypothetical project. And they can be the tools that I've talked about today. So the root cause analysis, driver diagrams, run and control charts, Pdsa cycles, and process mapping. But you can also consider using qualitative tools such as staff and patient surveys and interviews, as well as tag along and observations. And just have a think about the QI process, which is outlined here from left to right, and where you would plug those tools in. Next slide, please. And then when we come to the face-to-face session, we'll present in small groups about your hypothetical project. You don't need to have a PowerPoint presentation. If you need any help whatsoever, please reach out to me or any of the other faculty. And again, I will reiterate that you're not to panic about this. This is really just having a go at a hypothetical QI project if you haven't already done one before in your workplace. So that's all, I think. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucinda. And just to say yes, absolutely, that the template and all these instructions, including the full slide set, will be available on the learning platform, which we're going to tell you about at the end, how you get onto that and how you get access and how you get help. So for the next topic, I'll hand over to Meredith. Welcome, Meredith.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to do a very brief primer on conflict, and this is leading into some of the pre-work that's available in Cancer Campus and one of the interactive sessions in the course. So briefly, what is conflict? And it's when people's concerns appear incompatible. And it's often related to perception, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more in some of the early sessions in person. And there's some myths about conflict that are important. So not every instance of conflict is something that can or should be resolved. And although the cause may seem obvious, many times it actually isn't. And we're actually going to get into some of the different conflict handling modes, including avoidance. And I think what we want to do in a couple of our sessions is sort of come to the place that conflict isn't always bad. And actually conflict can be positive in certain circumstances, but it's not something that people are often very comfortable with. And so we want to give a few strategies to help people in that area, as we can go to the next slide. So these are the conflict handling modes. These are from a specific inventory, the Thomas Kilman model. And so in the online module, you are going to go into each of these conflict handling modes in a deeper, sort of a deeper dive in when you might want to use them, when it's not appropriate to use them, and how your sort of individual style may lean in a particular direction, but then also sort of thinking about when you can flex your style or move outside your comfort zone, depending on the situation. And there are 4 pre-modules. One is labeled conflict. There's another one that's labeled negotiation. And some of these concepts and topics dovetail between conflict and negotiation. So we can go on to the next slide. So I think that leads us into the modules that are there. You will receive an email with instructions on how to access Cancer Campus, as well as a contact email in case you have any problems either getting in or getting access to the materials. But these are the 4 modules. So the first one is leadership qualities, and it's basically looking at various attributes of leaders and trying to think about your own style. And when different styles are appropriate, and what features you might sort of reflect on that make good leaders. We can go to the next one. And the next one is leading effective meetings. So this is not something that we have time to get into in any great detail within the course, but it was something that our previous curriculum work and previous participants have said is very important as they begin to take on leadership roles. And so this will take you through some of the tips for leading effective meetings, and it will we'll touch on a few things in the team session, but this goes into a little bit more detail. And then we can go to the next module. This is negotiation. So this talks about the concept of principled negotiation and looks through some of the methods around that. And BATNA is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So this module sort of talks about some of the principles of negotiation, some strategies that you might want to use if you're put into this type of situation. And it also moves back and forth between the conflict model, which is the last one. We can go over to that one. Oh, we can go one more slide over. Oh, there we go. Oh, two. Back one. Yeah, so this is conflict management. So it is very important that you do, especially this one, because we are going to use the concepts that are covered in this. We're only going to very briefly review them, and then we're going to use them in some applied scenarios actually in the course. So make sure that this is fresh in your mind. We will do a really quick refresher because some of these things you can hear a few times to really make sure that you absorb them, but we will be using the learnings from this module in a scenario in the course. And we can go to the last slide. So this is how to access the module. So in the email, these details will come to you, and Matt's contact information is there. And so if there's any problems, you can reach out to him or myself or Sandra, and we can help you get in. I would suggest that you try to log in soon, maybe within the next week, just to make sure that you can have access. There's lots of interesting material there. We'd rather know earlier rather than later if you're having any trouble getting in or if you're having trouble accessing anything. And we will send some reminders in mid-August. We'll check in and see who's completed what, and we'll reach out to everyone. So I think that's the end of my slides.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Now, does anybody have any questions at this stage? The last bit we'll be talking through the homework and making it hopefully very, very clear what's to be done from now, and to give you some contacts if you have any problems. Has anybody got any questions? No? All very quiet. Excellent. I'm glad people hopefully know what they're doing. Thank you so much. Hopefully people know what they're doing rather than feeling completely bewildered. So do not worry if you're thinking, whoa, that looks all complicated. I know nothing about quality improvement. Some people will, some people won't. All of this is to help you step through learning some basic skills, and we're very, very happy to help you if you have any ideas, or you think, is this a good project, or is this an idea to build, to fill the template around. You are not actually doing the project. As Lucinda said, it's very important to just understand this is just an idea and a hypothetical idea to start to learn how to apply the tools and how to think about a project. If you actually have done a project, or you're thinking about a project, by all means use that as an example, but we don't want something fully worked up. Yeah, just please ask if you're not sure, and don't stress about it. This should be fun. Okay, so more about the homework. The reason that we get people to do homework is that it means that we can really ensure that you have a basic grounding on which to build at. We've only got 2 days together, and there's a lot we can do in those 2 days, but if you come with some basic understanding and skills and preparation, it will mean that you really get the most out of those 2 days. So what we've done, and I don't want this to sound too bossy, but what we've decided to do last time is to actually give some kind of prioritization for the homework, which you'll find on our online platform, which is the Cancer Campus, which is Princess Margaret learning platform. And if anybody's been involved with Moodle or other interactive learning platforms, that's what it is. So the items that are marked there as red, we really feel that if you haven't done them, it's going to be very hard for you to participate in the sections in the course. So if you're short of time or you're feeling overwhelmed or whatever, absolutely do the red sections first. The sections marked in blue, and I hope that we've really whittled it down to be what we hope is a reasonable amount of work. And when I say work, a lot of it is just watching a short video on YouTube or reading something fairly brief, or doing the interactive modules, or doing the insights profiling tool. So it's not massive amounts of tedious reading. It should be fun and it should be interesting, and you can do it in bits and pieces. So the blue is we really like you to do it. It's strongly recommended. It will help your learning, but it won't prohibit you from taking part in the course. And then there's a few bits, not much now, that's marked in yellow, which is if you're getting keen and you are interested in a particular topic, it just gives you a little bit more reading or viewing, or some things you might do on the plane on the way over if you want to. As I say, there's not a huge list of homework, so if you can do everything, that would be wonderful. So as Meredith just explained, you will get an email to the Cancer campus, which is where the vast majority of the materials are, and they are organised according to topic. So it should be fairly self-explanatory when you click onto the Cancer campus and set up your login. It should be very easy to see where the materials are. If you have any problems, please let us know. So you should receive the email to that tomorrow. We've asked, it might even be tomorrow. We've asked the people in Toronto to send that link for them tonight. What is not on the online learning platform is the Insights Profile Evaluator, which is where you put in your own views about your behaviour and perceptions, and that's the section that Barbara Ann was talking about. And that will be a link that's emailed to you early next week, so that we're not piling you with everything all at once. And before you do any of that, we would really, really appreciate if you would complete the pre-course survey evaluation. And the reason that we do that is that we're really trying to look at people's learning or understanding and the application of these skills that we're hopefully teaching people before and after the course. So that will be sent as a SurveyMonkey link again, probably tomorrow. And if you are getting excited and keen to start looking at the modules or some of the other homework over the weekend, we'd really appreciate it if you did the pre-course survey first. It does seem a bit long, and the reason for that is it's based on a pre-designed tool and validated tool for evaluation of leadership courses and programs, and we wanted to use something validated so we can really make sure that we're getting useful information. We've adapted it so that the questions will make some sense to you, but if you had not really thought about leadership before or not done any training or thinking in this area, some of the questions will seem a bit like, whoa, that doesn't apply to me. That's completely fine, absolutely completely fine. Just do it quickly, be honest, and there's actually one of the questions is, does this apply to me at this current time? And if the answer to that is no, put no, that's completely okay. And what we're hoping to do is to actually over time do a long-term evaluation, so that in 12 months' time we would send you a similar or identical survey, and we'd see if you're getting any further understanding, or if you need further assistance with your leadership training. So part of this is about evaluation, part of it is about how we can best help and support a group of you beyond this course in maintaining leadership training and networks. And by the time you guys complete this course, we'll have, I don't know, over 100, about 120 people across all the courses that have completed it. And we're really hoping that this can be something that we use to enhance your further training and leadership journey as things go along. So, sorry, I don't want to sound too bossy, but it would be fabulous if you completed the survey. So the next slide, please, Sarah. So you will have questions, and we know that there may be, problems, hopefully not too much with the platform, but if you are confused and you think, I really don't know what I'm doing, please get on to any of us, and you don't have to stick to the email address up there on this slide, but these, if you can put your problem or question into these categories, it might just help get to the right person immediately. So as Meredith said, for Cancer Campus login or issues accessing the platform, the learning platform and the materials, Matt is the person that'll be able to help you probably most immediately. For assistance with the quality improvement homework or questions or accessing the template or anything else, Lucinda or myself are probably the best people. For any other questions or issues or logistics about the course, Gina or Sarah are the best contacts. And again, all these contacts will be in this slide set, which will be put up hopefully by tomorrow or soon on the platform that you'll be able to access, or you already have Sarah's email address. So worst case scenario, just get on to Sarah and she'll be able to send you in the right direction. Are there any questions about that or comments from those people that I've put down as helpers? Everybody okay? Okay, all right, so next slide, please. So miraculously, we've actually got through the tutorial, which I think is a great start. I hope it doesn't mean that people are left with a lot of questions and things that they could have brought up, but I think it also means hopefully that the platform worked very well this time. We seem to have far less problem with people getting on and good connectivity, and everything seemed to go smoothly. So I hope that's your perception from your end. We're really, really looking forward to seeing people in Sydney at the end of August, and to meeting you all face to face and having lots of fun, as we always do. So please come along with that approach in mind and let us know if you have any issues. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to say? Or Sarah, have you got any comments?
No, nothing from me, Sandra.
Good. Everybody's sending in their hi and really look forward to seeing people soon. Oh yeah, Eddie's saying, will the slides be sent with the email? The slides we're hoping that the slides will actually be loaded on the platform in Campus. Is that right, Sarah?
Yes, Sandra, I'll upload them now along with the recording of the webinar as well.
Right. Yes, that's the other thing. There will be a recording, so you can listen through if you need explanation. And a couple of people that haven't been able to get online will be encouraged to listen. Well, will need to listen to the recording. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy your days or have good sleeps wherever you're up to. Looking forward to it. Bye.
Thanks, Sandra. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.